Ayan guys, puntahan na natin itong cash and marketable securities. Mabilis lang to, since theory na lang. Okay, so basahin lang natin. When most people use the term cash, they mean currency o yung paper money and coins, in addition to bank demand deposits. However, when corporate treasurers use the term, they often mean currency and demand deposits in addition pa to very safe, highly liquid marketable securities that can be sold quickly at a predictable price and thus be converted to bank deposits. Yan, okay. So therefore, cash as reported on balance sheets includes short-term securities which are also called cash equivalents. So kaya nakikita mo madalas sa balance sheets, cash and cash equivalents. Okay? So yung cash equivalents na yun, yun yung very safe, highly liquid, marketable securities, no? So familiar sa iyo yan, yung term na yan. Okay? So tingnan lang natin yung footnote. The reason corporate treasurers think of cash as they do is that from their perspective, there is little difference between demand deposits and liquid marketable securities. Kasi isang tawag lang daw dun sa dealer, pwede nating i-convert into cash yung ating holdings. Okay? So pwede siyang ma-deposit sa accounts natin. Yan, sabi dyan, in an hour or so. So kaya, tinitreat nila as cash or cash equivalent. Okay? Ayan. Basahin lang natin ito, yung note. Note that a firm's marketable security holdings can be divided into two categories. Yung una, operating short-term securities. So, pag sinabing operating short-term securities, ayan, held primarily to provide liquidity and are bought or sold as needed. Okay? For operations. Kaya nga, operating short-term securities yan. Okay. Then yung pangalawang category naman, others. Okay. Which are holdings in excess of the amount needed to support the operations. Okay. Tuloy lang natin dito, no? This breakdown is not reported on the balance sheet, but financial managers know how much of their securities will be needed for operations versus other purposes. Okay, in our discussion of net working capital, the focus is on securities held to provide operating liquidity. Okay, self-explanatory naman siya, no? Hindi nga naman pinapakita yung breakdown kung saan gagamitin yung security holdings, kung sa operations ba o for other purposes. Pero dito, binanggit yung yung other purposes ng security holdings. Yan. Will be used for such things as paying a large one-time dividend, repurchasing stock, retiring debt, acquiring other firms, or financing major expansions. Okay? Yung mga yan, hindi siya part ng normal operations. Okay? Kaya others, yung purposes na yan. So, other short-term securities. Okay. So, move on na tayo dito sa currency. Yan, basahin lang natin, no? Fast food operators, casinos, hotels, movie theaters, and other businesses hold substantial amounts of currency. But the importance of currency has decreased over time due to the rise of credit cards, debit cards, and other payment mechanisms. So, ano ba tong currency? Nabanggit na kanina dito, no? Yung currency. Ayan, paper money and coins. So, ngayon daw, nag-decrease na yung importance ng currency. Dahil meron ng credit cards, debit cards, at GCash. Okay? So, ayan. Tuloy mo yung pagbasa. Companies such as McDonald's need to hold enough currency to support operations. But if they held more, this would raise capital costs and tempt robbers. Okay? Each firm decides its own optimal level. But even for retailers, currency generally represents a small part of total cash holdings. Okay, so ito, footnote lang. Basahin mo. Okay, additional info lang yan. Okay, move on na tayo sa demand deposits. Okay, yan, basahin natin. Demand or checking deposits are far more important than currency for most businesses. These deposits are used for transactions, paying for labor and raw materials, purchasing fixed assets, paying taxes, servicing debt, paying dividends, and so forth. Okay? Ano ba tong demand deposits na to? From the name itself, no? Deposit siya, pero withdrawable anytime. Okay? So, on demand. Pwede mo siyang i-withdraw. Okay? Yan, tuloy mo yung pagbasa. However, commercial demand deposits typically earn no interest. Okay, so nakadeposito lang siya. Hindi siya nag-earn ng interest kadalasan. Okay? So firms try to minimize their holdings while still ensuring that they are able to pay suppliers promptly, take trade discounts, and take advantage of bargain purchases. Okay? So dapat minimize lang yung holdings natin dito sa demand deposits. Kasi nga, sayang yung potential ng pera natin. Okay? Hindi nag-earn ng interest dito eh. Okay, so yan. The following techniques are used to optimize demand deposit holdings. So dito may mga ilang techniques, no? Kung paano daw tamang i-optimize yung ating demand deposit holdings. Una, hold marketable securities rather than demand deposits to provide liquidity. Okay? So i-optimize mo daw yung demand deposits. Sa panong paraan, huwag kang mag-hold ng demand deposits. Ang galing din ito, no? Okay. Marketable securities daw yung kuhanin mo imbes na demand deposits. Okay. For purposes ng liquidity. Okay. So ano ba yung marketable securities? Mamaya, dito mo titingnan yan, no? Pero may idea ka na dyan, di ba? Kung ano yung marketable securities. Okay. Yan yung mga pinag-usapan natin sa chapter 2. Okay. Ayan. So, tuloy mo lang yung pagbasa dito. Ulitin natin, no? Hold marketable securities rather than demand deposits to provide liquidity. Okay. When the firm holds marketable securities, the need for demand deposits is reduced. For example, if a large bill requiring immediate payment comes in unexpectedly, the treasurer can simply call a securities dealer, sell some securities, and have funds deposited in the firm's checking account that same day. Okay? Bakit daw marketable securities yung mas advisable na hawakan mo imbis na demand deposits? Kasi itong securities na to, may interest. Okay? Yung demand deposits, wala. Okay. So, yan yung unang technique. Pangalawa, borrow on short notice. Basahin natin. Firms can establish lines of credit. So, itong lines of credit na to, pag-uusapan natin sa mga susunod pa na meetings, no? Okay. Under which they can borrow with just a telephone call if and when they need extra cash. So, basically, mangungutang tayo. Okay. Note though that they may have to pay fees for those commitments, and the cost of those fees must be considered when deciding to use borrowing capacity rather than securities to provide liquidity. Okay? So, anong sinasabi dito? Minsan kasi, mas okay yung mangungutang tayo. Halimbawa, yung interest ng uutangin natin is mas mababa kaysa dun sa interest na pwede nating i-earn kapag ininvest natin yung pera natin sa ibang bagay instead na sa demand deposits. Kasi nga, yung demand deposits, walang interest. Okay? So, ayun. Mas okay mag-borrow sa mga ilang situations, no? Kapag, yun nga, halimbawa, mas mataas yung interest na pwede mong i-earn kesa dun sa babayaran mong fees or interests. Okay? Ayan. So, i-consider mo rin yun, no? Ayan. So, pangatlo na technique, forecast payments and receipts better. Okay, basahin lang natin. The better the firm can forecast its cash inflows and outflows, the smaller its needs for funds to meet unexpected requirements. Tama naman, no? So, mas maganda kung na-monitor mo kailan papasok at kailan lalabas yung pera mo. Okay. Yan. So, paano natin mamomonitor yan? Pinag-usapan natin kanina, di ba? Yung cash budget. Okay. The cash budget is the key tool used to improve cash forecasts. Okay. Next technique, speed up payments. Ayan. So, firms can take actions to obtain their cash receipts faster. So, dito, binanggit yung concept ng lock boxes. Basahin natin. Lock boxes are post office boxes operated by a bank to which payments are sent. Okay? These are used to speed up effective receipt of cash. Okay? Yan. So dito may binigay na example nung lock boxes, no? Suppose a New York firm sells to customers all across the country. If it sends out bills and has customers make payments to its New York headquarters, time will be lost in waiting on the mail, opening envelopes, depositing checks in the bank, and waiting for the bank to clear the checks to make sure they are good. Okay, to speed up this process, the firm can direct customers to send payments to a post office box in the customer's local area. So, dun na lang magbabayad si customer. Okay, imbis na pumunta pa sa headquarters mo sa New York. Okay, so that way, mas mapapabilis yung pagkolekta sa, ano mo, no? Sa cash mo. Okay, yan. Then have a bank empty the box several times each day and start the collection process. Okay. So dyan, tuloy mo na lang yung pagbasa. If a firm's receipts average 1 million per day, and if the use of lock boxes can reduce the delay in obtaining usable cash from 5 days to 1 day, the firm will reduce funds in transit from 5 million to 1 million. Okay? Kasi nga, 5 days daw mag-iintay. Kapag, ano no? Kapag hindi natin ginamit yung lock boxes. Per day daw, 1 million yung average receipts. Okay, so, for 5 days, 5 million na nawawala. Okay, o yung nade-delay. Okay, kung gagamit tayo ng lock boxes, isang araw na lang yung itatagal ng collection process natin. Therefore, 1 million na lang yung iniintay natin. Okay, so, and thus, receive an effective cash infusion of 4 million. This is a one-time benefit, but the firm will be earning a continuing return on the 4 million. Kasi nga, mas maaga nating na-receive yung cash, mas maganda. Okay? So dito, sa footnote niya, yung concept ng float. Okay? Madalas tong natatanong sa mga theory questions, no? Yung float. So basahin mong mabuti yan. We should mention the term float as it often comes up in connection with cash management. If you write a check and it takes 5 days for the recipient to receive and deposit the check and for it to be deducted from your account, you have 5 days of float or the use of the money for 5 days before you have to deposit funds in your account. Ang tawag doon, payment float. Okay. On the other hand, if someone sends you a check and it takes 4 days for you to receive and deposit it and for the bank to clear the funds, that's 4 days of collection float. Okay, so dalawang klase na ng float, no? Payment float. Okay. Tapos, collection float. Okay, your net float would be 1 day. Positive net float is good, but negative net float is bad. Okay, from the standpoint of minimizing required cash holdings. Ayan. So sa ibang authors, medyo mas na-elaborate pa yung discussion dito sa float. Pero yung concept, ayan naman. Okay. Basahin mong mabuti and intindihin. Okay? Self-explanatory naman siya. Okay. Panglimang technique, use credit cards, debit cards, wire transfers, and direct deposits. Okay. If a firm switches from selling on credit to accepting credit cards or debit cards, it will receive next day cash and thus the same cash flow benefits as described earlier. Okay. Kasi kapag nagbenta ka on credit, di ba? Iintayin mo pang makolekta. Okay. Yung ano mo, yung sales mo. Pero kapag nag-accept ka ng credit or debit card payments, marireceive mo the next day yung cash. Okay? So, ayan. Yung concept nga na the earlier you receive cash, the better. Okay? So, ayan. Yan. Similarly, requiring customers to pay via wire deposits speed up collections, increases free cash flows, and reduces required cash holdings. Okay. Then, pang-anim na technique, synchronize cash flows. Okay? For example, ito utilities, oil companies, department stores, and the like generally use billing cycles under which different customers are billed on different days, causing cash to flow in evenly during the month. Okay? Okay, causing cash, ulitin lang natin, no? Causing cash to flow in evenly during the month. Okay? So, bali, hindi niya ina-assign yung collection ng isahan lang. So, ini-schedule niya. Okay? Ang tawag doon, billing cycles. Para masiguro na uh, yung flow ng pera, hindi lang naiipon sa isang buwan halimbawa. So, evenly, pumapasok yung pera dun sa companies natin. Okay? And these firms can then set up their own payment schedules to match their inflows. Okay? This reduces average cash balances, just as your personal average monthly balance can be reduced when your income comes in at the same time as your required payments. Okay, so yun yung 6 na techniques dito. Okay, para ma-optimize yung demand deposit holdings natin. Okay. Yan, binanggit lang dito. Banks have experts daw who help firms optimize their cash management procedures. The banks charge a fee for this service, but the benefits of a good cash management system are well worth the cost. Okay, pwede daw mag-avail ng services ng banks sa pagtulong sa atin para mag-manage nito. Okay. So, yun yung demand deposits. Ito na, yung marketable securities. Okay, basahin natin. Marketable securities held for operations are managed in conjunction with demand deposits. The management of one requires coordination with the other. Okay. Excuse me. Firms also purchase marketable securities as cash builds up from operations and then sell those securities when they need cash. Ayan. So, yung sinasabi lang dyan, no? Yung pagbili ng marketable securities kapag nag-accumulate tayo ng cash. Okay? Dito babanggitin yung yung mga kino-consider sa pagbili ng marketable securities. Ayan. A trade-off between risk and return is involved. The firm wants to earn high returns. Of course, no? High returns, yung malalaki yung interest, no? But because most marketable securities are held to provide liquidity, treasurers want to hold securities that can be sold very quickly at a known price. That means high-quality short-term instruments. Okay? Long-term treasury bonds are safe, but they are not well suited for the marketable securities portfolio because their prices decline when interest rates rise. Similarly, short-term securities issued by risky companies are not suitable because their prices decline when the issuer's problems grow worse. Okay? So ano daw yung mga okay na hawakan? Treasury bills, most commercial paper, bank certificates of deposits, and money market funds are suitable holdings. Okay? So itong concept ng commercial paper, sa section 17-11 pa natin i-discuss. Okay. So, basically, risk and return pa rin, no, yung kino-consider natin pagdating dito sa marketable securities. Yan. So, pwede nating ituloy yung pagbasa dito. It's worth noting that so-called safe securities don't always turn out to be safe. Okay, tapos binanggit dito yung nangyari noong 2007, no? Nung bumagsak yung economy. Ayan. So, pwede mo yung basahin on your own. Okay. Pero ito, importante. Yung last sentence dito sa baba. Those seeking higher returns generally have to accept more risk. Again, risk and return. Okay. So, tuloy natin dito. A firm's relationship with its bank, especially its ability to borrow on short notice, can have a significant effect on its need for both demand deposits and marketable securities. If a company has a firmly committed line of credit under which it can obtain funds with a simple telephone call, it won't need much in the way of liquid reserves. Okay, so yung line of credit concept nga, sa susunod pa natin na meetings i-discuss. So hindi siya dito sa cash and marketable securities management. Pero basically, yan yung paano ba to? Yung pagkakautang natin, no? Okay? So, kung paano tayo magkakaroon ng borrowings. Okay? Yan. Indeed, many argue that growing concerns about banks' willingness to provide credit has caused some companies to increase their holdings of cash in marketable securities. Okay? Kasi minsan, hindi naman basta-basta nagpapautang yung mga bangko. Kung madali lang sana mangutang sa bangko, hindi na natin kailangan mag-hold ng maraming cash or demand deposits or yung marketable securities. Okay? Invest na natin lahat ng cash natin kasi madali namang umutang. Kaya lang hindi ganoon eh. Tsaka may interest, di ba? So, i-consider natin yung mga bagay-bagay na yun. Okay, finally, larger corporations shop for securities all around the world, buying wherever risk-adjusted rates are highest. This shopping tends to equalize worldwide rates. If interest rates in Europe are higher than rates in the United States for equally risky securities, companies will buy European securities, driving their prices up and their yields down until an equilibrium has been established. Okay. So yung additional concepts na yan, no? Basahin mo na lang. Okay. So tingnan lang natin itong footnote na to. Companies can also buy securities that are denominated in different currencies. Thus, if a firm's treasurer thinks that the euro is likely to appreciate against the dollar, he or she might purchase securities denominated in euros. And if things work out as expected, the firm will earn interest and enjoy an additional gain from the change in exchange rates. Again, these actions help to keep world financial markets in equilibrium. So sa mga nag-forex trading, nakaka-relate ka dito. Okay? So yan. Yan yung concept ng marketable securities. So hanggang dito lang muna tayo. Hinto na natin yung recording. Bye!